Give me my beautiful wife Michelle back, you dumb fucking asshole. Those are the words spoken to Dracula by the car insurance, the general. Normally, a car insurance mascot, the general took a break from hawking insurance to star in the film Car Insurance the General vs. Dracula. The movie was supposed to be part of a larger car insurance mascot cinematic universe, but unfortunately, writer and former CEO of the General Car Insurance, Tony Desantis, was fired, leading to this film being forgotten. Until now. I have John here, and the two of us have a little bit of a history together.
That's correct.
He went to the Ron Howard and Aaron Sorkin masterclasses like I did. These took place over, this was an in-person masterclass. We got a deal where we went to their house for a week. We sort of worked on the grounds together to pay our way through the school.
Yeah.
But we learned all the tips and tricks for screenwriting and for movie making. How have you been sort of using those in your life so far? Have you been sort of finding it?
Yeah, I mean, it's great. You know, I was really honored to be able to get that face-to-face time. Obviously, that's very different than the masterclass norm. And it's really helped me for the world today, in which we are all able to go outside and see each other face-to-face and aren't having to do everything over Zoom and, like, digital cameras. So, definitely feeling very well-equipped. I mean, obviously, I went to school for screenwriting, so already I was like, well, the world is my oyster. I'm never going to have to worry about money again. So that was just kind of like, you love to see it.
Yeah, it was great. And of course, when you say face to face, when John and I say we saw Aaron Sorkin and Ron Howard face to face, we of course do mean their assistants.
That's true. Yeah.
So we went there. We went to Aaron Sorkin's house first. He taught us through his assistants how to do screenwriting. Graduated from that. There was a graduation program where we cooked burgers and dogs for sort of his friends, but it was our party. It was sort of ostensibly our party, but we were the caterers, and they were the ones eating and drinking the food, right?
Yeah, Aaron kept insisting that he do this like Guy Fieri impression, and it was one of those things where it's like you very quickly catch on he doesn't know who Guy Fieri is.
No, he doesn't know who he is.
It's one of those things where I think he thought it was Gordon Ramsay, because he just kind of kept being mean to us in like a sort of British accent, and then would just every so often just say the word diners. I didn't understand it really.
Yeah, and he also, it was a little interesting because not only was he doing a British accent like Gordon Ramsay, he was also saying bam like Emerald. So he was kind of getting a lot of his wires crossed that day, which was interesting. But then we went to Ron's masterclass camp for a week, learned how to direct through his assistants. Of course, we were directing each other. We were doing the Robert Redford movie, which is the one where he's on the boat. We were doing that script. So each of us played Robert Redford's character, and we would direct it, and we kind of did different roles that way. John, you sort of had an interesting twist on it where Robert Redford wasn't on a boat. He was actually on a bus driving through Cleveland.
Yeah, well, I think it's one of those things I kept getting caught up on the fact because we did the scene several times, but none of us ever got to play the boat. So at a certain point, I was just kind of like, well, I don't really know that the boat is that big of a deal if we're not even giving the boat lines. You know what I mean? So I was just like, well, this could hypothetically be any form of transportation. And my first thought was Magic School Bus, but then I was like, all right, that's copyright. I don't know exact. Oh, it's been done to death. Every director's got their Magic School Bus movie, and I was like, I gotta save mine.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what I was writing in Aaron's class. I was doing my take on Magic School Bus, where the kids are older and everything's kind of fucked up. You know what I mean? So, like, they're all older, they're teens. Miss Frizzle is dead. She's been replaced by Mr. Frizzle, who's her son.
Okay.
And it's sort of like a dark take on it. But you noted the hell out of this thing when we were writing in Aaron's masterclass, weren't you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of help from his assistants, Barry and Lyndon. They were both really lovely and gave a lot of good notes as well.
Yeah, they were great. But of course, yeah, I mean, John, you... so I've been asking everyone who's coming on this show, have they been to Hollywood, California? What's interesting about you, John, is that you actually live in Hollywood, California.
Yeah, I do. I live actually right underneath the Hollywood sign as well. It's lovely. Yeah, I've kind of carved out a little hobbit hole for myself there that I just kind of camp out in, and that's it's I only have to park my car, 30 miles down the road, so it's not too bad of a walk for my Uber job.
And you are showing me right now your calves. And for the folks at home, these things are enormous. They're huge, and that's from walking the hills every day to get from your car up to your hobbit hole.
I mean, listen, that's a Hollywood lifestyle. As everyone comes here and gets absurdly hot. Just ask Chris Pratt. He didn't just get jacked. He got jacked from the calves up.
Yeah, I've seen his. If you want to Google a picture of your calves, if you're at home, yeah, they're enormous. When you say hobbit hole, John, are you referring to like it actually looks like the Hobbit's hole?
Yeah, and definitely carving the hole out was the easy part. Getting the perfectly round door, that was then a whole situation. Finding an absurdly old uncle to kind of live there with me and tell a bunch of absurd stories. That was kind of like my first 2 years out here. It's just kind of finding that sort of an old man who would live with me.
Like an old man to live with you, and you found him.
That's right.
Yeah, you got him.
He had a family.
You took him away.
That's right.
And you're paying him in your Uber bucks?
Well, yeah, I mean, at this point, I can just kind of run everywhere I need to go, so I'm kind of fine with money.
Like leaps and bounds, like the Hulk. Now, I have a quick question. So, The Hobbit famously sort of eats these... In universe, they don't really show this in the films, but they do. J.R.R. Tolkien does talk about it in the book. That they do famously eat these things called Hobbit pellets. And they are eating the Hobbit pellets, and it's sort of like a rabbit's pellet or a hamster's pellet, but it's for a Hobbit. It's like picture sort of a tater tot, but like half a tater tot, and that's what they eat for food. Is that are you on the Hobbit pellet diet? Is that what you're eating?
Basically, yeah. Obviously, it's hard to approximate that. Also, basically, what I do is I just eat rabbits and tater tots.
Okay.
Because I'm just sort of like, okay, it's kind of looks like if a rabbit kind of did one of these.
Like if a rabbit poops a
cage.
Yeah, that's sort of what a Hobbit pellet is, isn't it?
Yeah, there have definitely been a couple times where I'll eat a rabbit turd thinking it's a tater tot, and then there will be egg on my face.
Sure, of course. Now, John, so you live in Hollywood, California, and did you? I just have a question. Did you see when they changed the Hollywood to Hollyboob?
Unfortunately, I did not. I was at work that day doing my Uber grind, and then I was driving a family around, and then I just kind of heard sobbing in the back, and I was just like, "Oh, I don't want any part of this." And then it's just this little 5-year-old that just kind of kept saying the word boob, boob. The magic is ruined, boob. And I was like, "Well, I don't want to look back there. I don't know what's going on." And then later I found out that someone desecrated my home.
Yeah, the sacred word.
That's right.
It was kind of like your Pearl Harbor a little bit over there, or your 9/11.
It was exactly like my Pearl Harbor.
Yeah.
In that Ben Affleck was there, and I was just kind of like, this seems like a situation which you are not adequately equipped for.
That was the family you were driving around. It was him and his son.
Yeah. Yeah, Anna de Armas. That was actually what made them break up. Famously.
Yeah.
Is the Hollyboob snafu.
A lot of couples ended that way, actually, is from what I've heard. Now, it is, of course, people do know if they've been listening to the past 3 episodes of this podcast that actually I was the one who came up with the idea to change the Hollywood sign to Hollyboob. But the guys stole the idea from me. I thought it would be a funny prank, but now I realize it wasn't as funny as I thought it was going to be. And a lot of people actually got very hurt from it.
Yeah. It's honestly a real Joker's trick of you.
Yeah.
To even plot out something that would expose our society in such a disgusting fashion.
Well, the thing is, as I explained in that episode, the reason I did it is because I wanted to go to jail.
Oh.
Because at the time I didn't really want to say it, but I can say it now. I've been living with my brother in our studio apartment, just me and him, and I've been kind of getting sick of this guy. So I was like, how's a way that I can go to jail that's really funny, that I think is really funny? And it was like, oh, let's change the Hollywood sign to Hollyboob. And of course, now I realize that that's actually a really terrible thing to do, and it actually would break up a lot of marriages, and children would cry because of it. So I actually do feel bad for even thinking about it and giving those guys the idea.
I definitely wish you would have just done a murder. Because there are at least, like, 12 people you could murder. That'd be A-okay.
Well, I'm giving myself, like, a 52-week period with this podcast before basically I want to become Dax Shepard. I want to make sort of all the money from this podcast. And if I don't do that, I can fall back on perhaps just killing someone and going to prison and getting 3 square meals a day, and I won't have to live with my brother anymore. So maybe we'll do that. I don't know.
Good news, if I'm not mistaken. I believe he is one of the hosts of the Amazon original series American reboot of Top Gear.
Who's that? Dax Shepard is?
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure it's like him, Paul Scheer, and then maybe a third guy who is the one that actually knows cars.
Jay Leno?
That's right.
So it's Dax Shepard, Paul Scheer, and Jay Leno, huh?
Yeah.
And they're doing Top Gear. Wow.
Which, I mean, come on. When you hear that, that's like an MCU stacked cast.
That
right
is.
there.
That's almost like if they brought together Superman, Captain America, and I'm trying to think, and a Power Ranger, and had them host Top Gear.
Oh my God. The Green Ranger?
Yeah, but Chris Hardwick is the Green Ranger. So it's Chris Hardwick, Green Ranger, and then Superman, and then Captain America, and they're all hosting Top Gear together. That's almost like what we're doing, basically.
Just imagine getting to see then the other Superman and Captain America going on the wall. Oh, man. Could you imagine crazy. Superman on the wall?
No, I couldn't even think of it. I can't even think of it because it would make my mind go crazy. I'd be lose my shit. It would be like you're recording the audio interface and my brain would break and all the recording would be fucked up and sound weird.
That's right. Well, I have no idea what you're talking about, but certainly that sounds like a reality that could happen.
Anyway, so we were just talking about Chris Hardwick, Dax Shepard. Yes, Dax Shepard. So now that he's hosting this thing, maybe I can that frees up a little room for me to do podcast and be the better podcast than him.
Yeah.
I'm thinking.
Also, since they got Jay Leno in there, I think you just have to know a little bit more about cars.
Than him.
Than Dax Shepard. Just to be able to name, like, one more kind of car brand.
Yeah.
Know what a Maserati 12 looks like. Get an absurd amount of, like, car insurance.
Uh-huh.
And that way you can just be like, I've got insurance for every single type of car. That's a big flex.
Now, we don't want to blow our load too quickly here because we are talking about a movie with car insurance. I do have...
Should I have not blown my load already?
No, the load is fine to be blown, but I did want to ask one more thing. So I'm sort of trying to diversify my media here. I'm doing podcasts right now, but I know that a lot of people who do podcasts also are doing this thing called Twitch streams. And I know that you've been doing a Twitch stream and you've been playing, what is this, Pokemon?
That's right, yeah.
Now, what is that? What is Pokemon?
Pokemon is sort of like, oh man, how to explain it? Do you remember Beyblades?
Yes.
Imagine if all of the Beyblade tops were instead like mice and dinosaurs and ice cream cones.
Okay.
That's what Pokemon is.
And so you're doing that for everyone's watching you.
That's right.
Okay. Very interesting.
And it's, as someone who's hosted 2 failed podcasts and then jumped into Twitch streaming, it's been an absolute delight. And I think I can pretty confidently say quantifiably more successful than either podcast. But I do think it's one of those things where it's like, well, it's probably because I did the 2 failed podcasts that then the Twitch streaming worked.
Wow. So it's like maybe I have to, because I've also hosted a failed podcast before that we don't talk about on this show. This is the second podcast that we are going to talk about because it's the one we're doing right now. So maybe my third try, it will be better for me. So maybe I
just have to purposely fuck this one up.
Yeah, and I think I'm doing a good job of that already, actually. I think I'm ahead of the curve in a way. I am fucking
I'd like to think I'm helping, too.
Yeah.
Certainly.
No, I think everyone who's been on so far has been helping me fuck this up royally.
Wonderful.
This is my last question I just remembered. Do you know the Big Kahuna? The surf instructor who lives in LA?
I must admit I don't, but that's largely just because I'm afraid of water.
Okay.
So I try to avoid knowledge of most water-based individuals.
Yeah, because I had taken a surf class with him about a couple years ago. It's the only time I've been to Hollywood, California. I went out, flew out for the surf lesson. And I want to get the Big Kahuna on this show, but I don't know his real name, so I've been asking everyone who it is. And then, since you live in LA, I was wondering maybe if you just know him. He has an adult son that he drives around with in a VW Bug.
Okay.
2 surfboards.
I want to say Trevor.
Okay. I'll check Trevor in the phone books. Maybe I can find him that way. Anyway, John, you sort of blew the load already, but we're going to get into it right now. This week's film is, of course, Car Insurance, The General vs. Dracula. The year of the film is 2005. It's directed by Stephen Sommers, who directed The Mummy and directed Van Helsing, which will play into this movie. And it was written by both Stephen Sommers, who directed it, and Tony Desantis, who, this is his only screenwriting credit. His main credit is being the CEO of the General Car Insurance Company.
Oh.
Yeah. Now, John, before we get into sort of the movie, I want to sort of ask sort of what was your viewing experience like? How did you watch the film? Where did you watch it? You know, what devices? What was the deal?
Yeah, I watched it kind of like in the back of a taxi, because they have those little screens where sometimes you can play, like, you know, Candy Crush. Sometimes you can answer questions about celebrity trivia. Or then, in this instance, there is, do you want to watch the entire Car Insurance versus Dracula movie? Or Car Insurance General.
Car Insurance, The General versus Dracula, yeah.
Yeah, and, you know, so I watched it, and this would have been 3 years ago when I first moved out to Los Angeles. And then it's just kind of been sitting with me ever since I've seen it, you know? It's one that is just filled to the brim with so many iconic characters.
Yeah.
A lot of them that haven't really gotten their due in pop culture since. My biggest experience of this is just kind of staying in the letterboxd reviews of this movie and just challenging anyone who gives it under 3 stars.
Yeah.
I just find any review that does that, and then I just comment, wow, good taste, bud, and the little cry laugh emoji.
Yeah, that's hilarious. That really shows them.
Yeah.
So I watched it. We actually are kind of similar here. I actually watched it on the subway.
Oh, nice.
As people may know, I am living in a studio apartment with my brother. He's working as a telemarketer. He's the guy who calls you and asks you about your car warranty. And so he needs complete and utter silence when he's doing his job, so I sort of have to watch these movies elsewhere.
Yeah.
And so I watched it on the subway. Subway. And yeah, I didn't have headphones in. I was just watching on my phone, and it was a fine experience, I thought.
Yeah. I mean, back when I lived in New York, it was on the subway that I watched the entirety of Luke Cage on Netflix. So,
on your way home from work?
That's right, to and from. I would just sit down and I'd just be like, "Hey, what's my old buddy Luke getting up to?"
Wow, that's great. So let's get into this a little bit, John. So you watched it in the taxi cab. This, of course, is starring Brendan Fraser, who people may know from the Mummy movies. Steven actually used him in this movie as well. Brendan Fraser, Charles Dance, who's, of course, Tywin Lannister. Shaq plays Frankenstein. The son of Wolfman is Freddie Highmore, who's from The Good Doctor. Halle Berry, everyone knows her, is Michelle General, the General's wife. Idris Elba is Geico Gecko. Hugh Jackman is Van Helsing, who makes a starring or a cameo role in here. And then, of course, we have, rounding out the cast, Rachel Weisz as Miss State Farm, and Aaron Esurance as Zooey Deschanel. John, who do you think is the sort of standout performance in this film out of that cast there?
Oh, man. I mean, if I had to say, if I really had to say, I'd say for me it's... And I do. And I see the gun you're pointing at my head, and I promise I'll deliver you an answer.
Please.
For me, I think it's got to be Hugh Jackman as Van Helsing. I think it's one of those things where the man was just born to be in franchises. You know what I mean? I think Brendan Fraser, he's kind of someone that hit his stride early in his career and then has been hitting it again recently. I feel like, you know, Charles Dance, he's delightful. Freddie Highmore, he's a good doctor. No one's going to argue that.
An all right actor. He's a good doctor.
That's right. Oh, yeah, no. Not so good as an actor. Absolute good doctor. Solid.
Very good doctor, yeah.
He put most of my limbs back on me correctly. But Hugh Jackman, you know, he really knows how to milk his screen presence.
Oh, for sure.
He really knows how to make a movie his, how to kind of draw on the attention. And the song certainly helped. The big song that he sang when he shows up at the end there.
Yeah, so let's start from the beginning here. So basically, what this is the premise of this film is the car insurance general. It opens with his wedding, and he's getting married to Michelle, the beautiful Halle Berry, and they're having this beautiful ceremony. They're on. You might be familiar with this. They're actually in Southern California on the coast, overlooking the Pacific Ocean. He kisses Michelle on the lips, as you do during a wedding, and they go on their honeymoon to the hotel. He wakes up the next morning, and wouldn't you know it, his wife's gone. He finds a note. Dracula's kidnapped her. And I thought that was just a very interesting way to start. They kind of get right into the action, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things where at a certain point they're just kind of like, all right, listen. A lot of these movies, they just kind of like to pussyfoot around. Oh, let's get him into the plot, into the crux, a little bit slowly, right? We got to do character introductions. We got to set up emotional stakes and themes. Bullshit. You don't have to do any of that.
Yeah.
This movie, they were just like, fucking Dracula. Fucking General. He's gonna save you some time.
Exactly.
Here's him getting a little bit of kiss, and now, kiss partner's gone by Dracula. And now you're gonna see him fight. Because that's what you want.
That is what you want. And we do see, of course, Tony Desantis, the CEO of the General Car Insurance Company. We do see his touch here on the screenplay a little bit, because when the general leans in for the kiss with Halle Berry, he does go, "Let me get a kiss on those sweet, sweet lips." And Stephen Sommers does make it very clear in a lot of the interviews that he's done about this movie that some of the more expository dialogue does come from Tony's fingertips when he did a pass on the script. So, let me get a kiss on those sweet, sweet lips. The general will go into a bar and kind of look at it, a pretty girl, and say, "Hachi machi, look at those tatas," stuff like that. And that is Tony Desantis, the CEO of the General Car Insurance, writing that.
I think I was willing to give him kind of the benefit of the doubt at first, but then on a rewatch for this podcast, I realized he's actually playing the minister that marries them.
He does.
He says specifically, "I now pronounce you man in life, General. Take your wife by her gorgeous cheekbones and plant a big old stinky honkin' kiss right upon her sweet dang lips."
And that is a great line from him, and it is sort of like a Quentin Tarantino-esque sort of cameo by Tony there. He is the minister, and we love to see that. And this is one of those movies, John, where when you watch it, you do pick up on things like that over and over. There's just something new every time. And so, this is my second viewing of it, and I saw Tony, and I was like, that's him. That's Tony. I didn't even realize it.
I want to say mise-en-scene is a term that might describe that.
Yes.
But no one can say for sure.
No one can say for sure. Of course, we did pay very much money to go to both those Masterclasses, and we still don't know what that means, which is interesting.
Yeah.
So he finds out that his wife is missing. He knows Dracula is the kidnapper. And something that we find out pretty quickly is that the Dracula is planning on turning everyone into a vampire using the general's arch nemesis, the Geico Gecko. And, boy, do you want to say who plays the Geico Gecko, John? It's quite a role.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you teased it up there a little bit up top. Idris Elba. I think it's one of those things where, this was kind of a surprise for me, because obviously before I had seen this movie, I had gotten to see an early copy of 2019's Cats. And at first I was kind of like, I don't understand why anyone would choose Idris Elba to be in this movie, but also I don't understand why anyone in the VFX would make him so truly scrawny. But then I see him in this movie, I'm like, oh, well, there's the blueprint right there.
Yeah.
Arguably just as iconic as his role as Stringer Bell in The Wire is his turn as the villainous Geico Gecko.
Yes. And this is a ComcastXfinity.com/film blog fun fact. All of the sort of effects here, it's not like Cats. This is all makeup. They refused to do VFX for this movie, so Idris Elba is dressed up like the Geico Gecko. He has a big tail taped to his butt. They kind of molded a snout, a green snout, using sort of dough or something. I don't know what they used.
It seemed like the exact same sort of prosthetics they used in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2.
Yes.
Not the first one, the second one.
Yes, and he's very clunky walking around, and he kind of hobbles around, I'm not going to say that it looks good, but it doesn't look bad. I'll say that much.
Yeah, and it was, again, very interesting, because obviously they did want to make him look a little bit scrawny, because I think partially because Geico Gecko is not known for muscle, but also because they really wanted to hammer home that this was a bad person that one should not idolize. So what they did is they kind of just gave Idris, like, a black onesie, and then just kind of drew, like, a green stick figure across the onesie, as if to kind of be like, oh yeah, that space around him, that's purely empty space, just focus on the scrawny little green stick figure with the head of a mutant Ninja Turtle.
And you do sort of touch on such a great point there, John, is that the Geico Gecko is a piece of shit who no one wants to be around, and is, quite frankly, sort of the personification of evil in this movie and in real life. And Tony Desantis really wants to hammer that point in the script. And so the general bursts into the Gecko's house, which of course is a Geico location, beats the shit out of a couple of State Farm agents, or not State Farm agents, car insurance agents, finds the Gecko and interrogates him in what is a pretty brutal scene.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Very brutal.
I mean, I think, and I understand why you initially mixed it up with State Farm, because during the incredibly, I think it's like 20 full minutes of action, where he's absolutely just eviscerating these agents, there is like a scroll at the bottom of the screen that's like, Jake from State Farm knows this is happening and chooses to do nothing.
Because
so that was
he chooses to do nothing when there is evil in the world. Jake from State Farm, that is.
There's a lot of goings on in this movie and dealing with the other kind of agencies, where it's either they're all villainous pieces of shit or they're complete cowards.
Yes.
And this was kind of this entrance of introducing the latter option.
They do sort of make a fool out of a lot of the different car insurance sort of mascots here. One of them, though, of course, there are two kind of smoking hot babes in this movie. I mentioned it before. Miss State Farm, which is Rachel Weisz, and Aaron Esurance, which is Zooey Deschanel, and they both play the general car insurance man's sort of love interests here. And so we see Aaron Esurance. She bursts into the Gecko's lair when he's torturing the Gecko to try to figure out where Dracula's at. And she tries to stop the general, but the general won't do it. And then the general kind of turns to her and says, are you going to give me a big stinking kiss on the lips, or are you just going to stand there being kind of pussyfooting around? And she plants one on him.
That's right. I mean, and there's actually a lot of very interesting nuance in this scene, especially because, I don't know if we've brought this up yet, but this whole fight scene, of course, happens at night.
Yeah.
And so initially when, this agent shows up, it's very clear in kind of the direction that he's still trying to be like, is this a goddamn vampire? Which, I mean, is fair. I mean, if I look at Rachel Weisz, I'm like, definitely a gorgeous woman. Could be a vampire.
Looks a little bit like a vampire for sure, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the Victorian dress didn't really help her case. I still don't quite understand. I've never seen a State Farm agent wearing Victorian-era clothes, so I don't know if that is just, like, what they do. But it was one of those things where it's like, you could tell in the way he was talking, where he was just kind of like, always eyeing the window, seeing, like, what position the moon was at, offering her a bunch of garlic, like, repeatedly. I think he just straight up starts, like, pouring garlic powder on her at one point during their conversation.
Yeah.
And then when he's like, okay, well, you're not a vampire, so I don't understand how you, just a regular human woman, haven't planted a big old kiss on me yet. So how about we remedy that
situation? So, right then and there, the general kisses both Aaron Esurance and Miss State Farm. And you make an interesting point here, and this is something I haven't really noticed. In the movie, the only vampire is Dracula. There are no other vampires.
Yeah.
And in Van Helsing, Dracula is one of the vampires for sure, but he also has like a bunch of other vampires working for him. But in this one, they don't. There's no other vampire.
I think it's just because, obviously, we've seen a lot of versions of fighting vampires, where, there's always the pre-established lore of, like, oh, you gotta put a wooden stake through the heart, you gotta be able to, like, chop off their head.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, the general just loves his guns.
Oh.
And, you can't really kill vampires with guns, but you can absolutely kill human car insurance agents with guns. With gusto.
And the Geico Gecko, but he doesn't kill him yet because the Gecko escapes from the torture chamber. Slithers away, down the sewers. The general pursues him, and who does he bump into down there but Frankenstein, played by Shaq.
That's right. And this was the part where I really kind of started to see the artistic vision come together. Because this was, I believe, the first point where we actually got to see a monster alongside an insurance character.
Yes.
So this was the part where I was kind of like, okay, now I'm really seeing how these two worlds come together. This is our moment where Michael Jordan meets the tunes.
Yes, and instead of Michael Jordan, of course, it is Shaq, and instead of the tunes, it is the car insurance mascots. And
Yeah.
another Comcast Xfinity.com /film blog fun fact is, of course, that this was supposed to be the first film in the eventual Universal Monsters car insurance mascot extending universe. But unfortunately, it just never happened. It never panned out. But yeah, you're right. You can see sort of the inklings of it here. And wouldn't it have been awesome if we had gotten sort of an MCU, but for the car insurance mascots and the Universal Monsters?
Yeah, well, I mean, and it's also very interesting, again, to just kind of, like, re-examine and just realize just how, like, cutting edge this movie was.
Mm-hmm.
Especially considering how, you know, they made attempts at, like, the Dooku, the Dark Universe Cinematic Universe, several years later. It is interesting to kind of look back, because if you listen very closely and you have, like, closed captions on, you can kind of see that sometimes during the middle of dialogue, it'll just have, in parentheses, Johnny Depp is getting up to some shenanigans, but he's invisible, so you don't know for sure.
Yeah, that is something that you know, he's not even credited in it, but in interviews, both Tony DeSantis and Stephen Sommers said Johnny Depp is there getting up to shenanigans in the background. And we talked about sort of how, you know, you want to watch this movie more than once, because if you do pay attention in the background of certain scenes, like, for instance, when they are in the dentist's office with Shaq and he's getting his teeth cleaned while he's telling him what Dracula's up to, we can see in the back that some of the toothpaste is sort of flying out of the bottle mysteriously, but there's no dentist there to squid it out. You know what I mean? And he's not squidting it out at all.
Yeah, I was mostly just transfixed by the practical effects of getting that toothpaste squeezed out into his mouth.
Squid it out.
You know, this just clicked for me. Again, if we're talking about how it mirrors the future, you know who shows up in a lot of, you know, general car insurance commercials these days? It's Shaq.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Wow. Film, huh?
Yeah. Film sort of brings everyone together, doesn't it?
That's right.
So we just talked about how the Gecko, he escapes. They chase him down the sewer, and then the general goes with Shaq to the dentist's office so that Frankenstein can get his teeth cleaned. And while he's getting his teeth cleaned, he, of course, explains that Dracula's whole plot is to team up with the Geico Gecko to offer everybody not 15% off your car insurance, but 30% off. And they're going to be doing that if you sign up in the Gecko's offices during the freaking solar eclipse. And what happens in the dark? Vampire comes out. As sex, and vampire comes out too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So this would.
Are you allowed to have sex outside of a solar eclipse?
I don't really know the rule. I'll edit this part out probably, but I've actually never had sex.
Okay.
And that could possibly be why.
Yeah.
That is very possible that you can only do it during the solar eclipse, because if that wasn't the case, I don't know why I wouldn't have had it yet.
Yeah. I got married right after the solar eclipse that just happened recently. And so my wife was just kind of be like, no.
Not yet.
No.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, please.
And I believe her. I believe her, sort of. I mean, I don't know your wife, but
I believe all women.
That's true, yeah.
And that actually makes me very good and brave.
Yeah, no, you do believe them, and I believe them too, actually. I also do, too. Me too, also.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah. So anyway, so now the general has to sort of solve this little case here. He has to figure out where could Dracula be hiding? And, of course, they're in Southern California. What's the scariest place in Southern California, John?
Oh, you know, you ask me, and I gotta say the La Brea Tar Pits.
And you would be right, because that's where Dracula is hiding. He's hiding in the middle of the La Brea Tar Pits. But they need help getting there, because you can't just walk through those tar pits. I don't know if you've ever tried. I've never tried.
Your shoes are going to get a little bit too sticky. Mm-hmm. And you'd be able to, but you'd be really disappointed in what you've done to your shoes.
Yeah.
You know, it's a whole thing. Because then it's like, I don't know any specific, like, shoe cleaning stores, but I don't know if I own the, like, proper shoe cleaning materials in my own home. And now I got a whole bunch of little dinosaur bits, and I don't want dinosaurs to grow out of the bottom of my shoes.
Yeah, no, I don't want that either, and the general doesn't want either. So he needs someone to help him sort of get in there without getting any of the sticky stuff on him and ending up like a dinosaur even and dying in there. So who does he recruit but Erin Esurance, who we haven't seen in a very long time. She used to be really popular. Purple hair. She was kind of a secret agent. She worked for Esurance.
Yeah.
And another ComcastXfinity.com /film blog fun fact is that actually Erin Esurance holds the Guinness World Record for company mascot with the most hentai depictions.
Oh.
So yeah, and I kind of looked at some of those for the research for this podcast, and it's true. There's a lot of them.
Yeah. I think for me, what made this scene so impactful, the introduction of Aaron Insurance, of course, is that when the general first kind of like walks up, we just kind of see this very grizzled figure with very long hair and like a beard that's clearly like been away from society for a minute. And at first, my mind goes, "Oh snap! This must be the Geico caveman of television fame. This must be the man himself."
Mm-hmm.
And wouldn't that be something if it was like, a fundamental betrayal by another Geico member?
Yeah, that would have been interesting, wouldn't it have been?
It would have, but not as interesting as what wound up happening,
Yes.
which is a classic bait and switch.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were like, we could have, but at the end of the day, that'd just be playing to more fucking Geico commercials. We're smarter than that.
And we're the
better than
general.
that.
Yeah.
We're getting more car commercial, more car insurance brands involved. Rips off the beard, then it's Aaron Insurance, and then you're like, oh, the lore. The lore. We can all brag about how much we all loved and watched and rewatched the Caveman sitcom, but the lore of Aaron Insurance, there's no topping it.
Well, it's funny you mention that, John. So it's interesting because two things happened with the cavemen, which is why they weren't used in the film. Because you would think the first sort of story move here would be, of course, to have the cavemen, like you say, betray Geico Gecko. But what ended up happening is Sony actually owned the rights to the cavemen. So they couldn't use the cavemen in this movie. And then when they're swinging into the La Brea tar pits on Aaron Insurance's grappling hook, if you look closely at the bottom corner of the screen, and I think JJ got a little bit of an idea here because you see the Geico caveman's bones in the La Brea tar pit. Mm-hmm.
That also explains why the cavemen make an appearance in Venom.
Yes, they are in Venom. Yeah, if you've ever seen Venom, of course, the cavemen do show up and sort of help Tom Hardy.
Yeah. They're kind of like, we're covered in tar. That's basically like whatever the fuck is wrong with you, right?
Yeah, and they do
Tom
say
Hardy's
that.
Like, guys, stop.
And it's Nick Kroll, and he's reprising his role.
Oh, you can tell Nick Kroll and Tom Hardy, they must have gotten up to so many pranks
on set. Yeah, they must have had a lot of fun. So, of course, the General and Aaron Insurance and Miss State Farm swing into the La Brea tar pits on the back of the grappling hooks to confront Dracula. And wouldn't you know it, something's happening in Michelle, the General, who, of course, is the General's wife from the beginning. She's being turned into the freaking Bride of Frankenstein.
Ugh.
And you want to talk about betrayal. Guess who betrayed the General? It's Shaq as Frankenstein. He betrays him because he wants a bride himself. So Halle Berry's being turned into Bride of Frankenstein. This kind of sets up her standalone movie that was supposed to happen.
Yeah.
It
would have been a really lovely kind of a Kill Bill-esque movie. You can really tell that this movie was inspired by the works of Quentin Tarantino.
Oh, yeah.
Largely because of the sexism, but definitely also because Bride of Frankenstein, Halle Berry was dressed up in kind of like a yellow jumpsuit while being also Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah, so usually Bride of Frankenstein is, of course, black and white, but in this version, she's yellow and black like Kill Bill is. But yeah, like you said, they're sort of a lot of hints to Quentin in this one. Of course, we mentioned Tony Desantis at the beginning, popping in as the minister, the Kill Bill jumpsuit, all the shots of Aaron Insurance's feet, shots of Aaron Insurance's feet drawn as hentai, which was interesting, sort of just thrown in there. And like Kill Bill, there is a whole anime sequence, but it is, of course, just Aaron Insurance hentai. So there are sort of nods to Quentin, one of the masters of action, and some would say horror, I guess, too, because didn't he do, what's that called, Death Trap or whatever, those 3 movies?
Death Proof?
Yeah, Death Proof. That's kind of like a horror movie a
Death
little
Stranding.
bit. Yeah, Death Stranding, too. I think he was part of that game. He helped Cletus or whatever from Walking Dead become one of the...
Yeah, he was the baby.
Yeah, he was the baby. So we're in the middle of the La Brea tar pits, and Dracula is there, and of course it's freaking Tywin Lannister, Charles Dance, and he says, "Oh, General, you found me. Are you gonna spoil my plan? I don't think so." And then what does he do? He flips a switch, it opens up the floodgates, and the tar is pouring in. And so the General has a choice. Does he save his wife, who's becoming the Bride of Frankenstein, or does he go after Charles Dance? And he looks over at Aaron Insurance and he says, "Give me a kiss with those purple lips, you beautiful lady." And she does. She plants one on him, and he makes his choice. He goes after Dracula, leaves the Bride of Frankenstein to her fate. And Tony Desantis in one of the interviews actually said, and this is very interesting. He said, "This is sort of my own thing. My wife cheated on me with Shaquille O'Neal, and this is sort of a character trait that she had. So I'm sort of getting back at her with this movie."
I had kind of figured because, like, obviously part of the process in becoming Bride of Frankenstein, character that is stitched together from dead bodies, is that you kind of see that, like, the beginning of the process is she's just getting the absolute shit stabbed out of her. And so I was just kind of like, I figured, like, oh, yeah, I mean, he's not going to save her because she's dead.
Yeah.
She's simply been stabbed too many times. But wow, that's really interesting. Fun cinema facts.
Yeah, that Shaq fucked Tony Desantis, the CEO of the General Car Insurance's wife.
Yeah. I mean, maybe if I was still going to movie theaters, I could have seen Maria Menounos. Oh, fuck.
Maria Menounos.
Maria Menounos. Yeah, that's not it. Fuck. We're getting so close to saying what her name is.
What is she from?
I gotta look this up. She's from Nuvi. It's like
Oh,
N-O-O-V-E-E.
yeah. I know what you're talking about, where she gives you the quizzes at the beginning.
Maria Menounos.
Yeah.
I don't know why we were all adding in a fucking D.
Well, because the S is right next to the D on the keyboard, so we were probably thinking about that.
Oh, that's true. That's why I kept wanting to call her QWERTY.
Mm-hmm. And I always get those questions wrong.
Yeah.
And I throw the popcorn at the screen when she tells me it's wrong. I get really mad
Well,
at her.
I didn't go to the movies to get tested.
Yeah, what am I doing? I go to the movies to watch the movie. I don't go to the movies to take a freaking test. What is this, high school?
Yeah, if I want movie tests, I will give them out myself in my very compelling 3-hour YouTube video essays about movies.
That's a good idea. Maybe I should start doing that too.
Oh, dude, I've made 13 about The Last Jedi and I'm rich.
Which one do you not like it?
Yeah, I mean, I'll never tell.
You have to watch the YouTubes.
That's right. Oh, the YouTubes say I fucking hate it. But do I? Ooh. We'll never know for sure.
So they save the freaking Michelle from Dracula, but Dracula gets to escape because the general, of course, has to choose between plunging a stake in the vampire's heart or giving Aaron Insurance one more big sloppy kiss on the purple lips, and he does it. He chooses the lady over the killing of the vampire, which sets up a sequel, which we never got to see, unfortunately. Yeah. It's just too bad. It's honestly just very much too bad that we never got to see these. A couple more fun facts for you here. Brendan Fraser went to Navy SEAL training for 6 months and then worked at a car insurance office for 6 months to prepare for the role. So this basically took him a year to prepare for. He sort of went method for this one.
Yeah. Well, I also heard that he just kind of needed the time away from the tunes. Because this was kind of something that happened right in the middle of his Looney Tunes Back in Action filming. Yeah. I think the movie came out in like 2009. So it's still like few years off. But he was just like, I gotta get the fuck away from these tunes.
These fucking tunes, yeah.
They're too goofy, they're too silly, and I'm not gonna wanna kill Dracula to save my wife. Except he doesn't even do that in the movie, but he didn't know that yet.
Yeah, I mean, some of these guys, John, are dressing up like a pretty lady. Some of them are dressing TNT up like a pretty lady. And Brendan Fraser is just getting sort of tricked and flummoxed all over the place. And yeah, I can't even imagine. I'd want to break from him too, probably.
Oh my god. I mean, can you imagine just the freakouts that would have happened on set if one of the 13 women that he kisses in this movie multiple times turned out to actually be Bugs Bunny?
Or worse, a stick of dynamite that was or a box of dynamite dressed up to look like a lady, and then you get a big
He should thank his lucky stars that Tom Hardy and Nick Kroll weren't also part of this movie, because then he would have really been in for it.
He would have been in for a lot of tricks, a lot of pranks. Yeah, so I mean, Brendan Fraser sort of disappeared into this role because he worked as both a Navy SEAL to become a general of the Navy, and then he also became a car insurance salesman. Yeah. I already talked about the Aaron Insurance being in all of the cartoon porn. And then, of course, Tony Desantis would later, after this movie came out, actually, directly after it, he got fired as a CEO. And he sort of landed on his feet. He became a pretty popular cult leader.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. He was sort of this guy who believed that if they all went onto the top of a mountain on a certain day, they'd get picked up by a bunch of aliens that would give them a kiss on the lips.
That's kind of like what Jared Leto's doing now, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is exactly like Jared Leto. Speaking of which, I mean, I talk about sort of bad ways to act in a movie. I mean, Jared Leto sending rats. to his
He's
co-stars.
not good at his job. Not in
Yeah.
a conventional sense. But when you hear him say that we live in a society, you have to just be like, that's true.
Yeah, and of course that is something we're all excited for, is to watch Jared Leto be in the new Justice League that's coming out, which is basically just the old Justice League, I think, but it has
Yeah.
like more slow-mo in it.
I definitely remember walking out of Justice League 4 years ago and saying, but what if it was this much different?
Yeah. What if there was more speed ramping in it?
That's right.
And they sort
What
of
if there
did,
were fewer women somehow?
I did hear Zack Snyder did sort of edit out a bunch of the women in the movie.
Yeah. He just kind of CGI'd owls over top of them.
Yeah. So John, this movie ends sort of on a cliffhanger. Unfortunately, we never get to see sort of the follow-up where the general car insurance does kill Dracula.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, as a standalone movie, what did you think of this?
I mean, it's very complicated, right? It's sort of like Marvel's Iron Man, where this was back in the day where they're like, oh yeah, we're just gonna make a solid movie to begin with, and then at the very tail end, then we'll just throw in a random beat that's meant to shoehorn in a sequel. This was before they were like, listen, we're just gonna make a whole movie, and yeah, if we set up a bunch of characters along the way for their own movies, their own trilogies, their own series on network and studio based streaming platforms. But right now we just care about the story. And this is what really drew me to the movie in the first place, is because, say what you will about Tony Desantis and Stephen Sommers, but they had a specific story they wanted to tell. And they just wanted to make sure that they got the money and the characters to be able to tell it right off the bat. And so, as much as I think we could have seen a lot of great stuff from potential sequels, just because, much like Kill Bill, it's really complete with Kill Bill Volume 2. But you watch Kill Bill, you still get to see a woman kill some other women.
Yeah.
So, how can you be mad at that?
And at the end of the day, that's all you want to see, isn't it?
That's all I want to see. Oh my god, dude. When women wind up dead, that's a character I hate playing. I don't like that. I don't like that choice I made, but what can you do?
Yeah, I mean, on my end, I thought this was a good standalone movie. I did sort of wonder what happened to Idris Elba, because he did slink away in the sewer as the Geico Gecko, and they never really showed him again.
Yeah.
Which I thought was maybe a mistake. I also was wondering sort of what Rachel Weisz was even doing in the movie, because she showed up at the beginning and was kind of just there. She did serve to give the general a couple kisses, which, I mean, the more kisses in a movie, the better for me. But, just like seeing it over and over again sort of does take the need to have it in real life away from me, which is great for me.
Yeah.
I really do like that. I love that part of it.
I just assumed she ran right from this movie into The Favorite. That was kind of my just assumption.
Yeah, because she was wearing sort of the dress, now that you mention it, that she wore in The Favorite.
Yeah.
And she just took off the State Farm polo. So maybe you're right, yeah. But anyway, I mean, as a standalone movie, I really liked it. And when I was on the subway, only a couple people got mad at me because I was watching it without my headphones on. So I guess I would have to give this, we're going to rate it out of 10 stars. I think I'm going to give this one a 7 out of 10. It's a solid C in my book. I wish if there was a sequel to it, I probably would give it an 8 or a 9. John, what do you say in terms of stars?
I think that's an entirely fair rating. I'm going to give it a 3 stars out of 5. Just because I think there was a lot of room in the movie's 2.5-hour runtime where they could have had just the general look in the camera real quick and just be like, hey, sorry about the war crimes. And he never did. He never did. And we see a lot of war crimes get done. For a movie that is majorly set around killing Dracula, one of the world's most pre-established evils, where it's sort of that's easy to root for, they managed to fit in a lot of the general's war crimes when he was away at war. They managed to get a lot of those in there.
A lot of flashbacks to when the general fought in Vietnam, and he committed a lot of war crimes there, which you don't really know. It's an interesting thing that they sort of give the car insurance mascot salesman, because you would think that they sort of want him to be as non-controversial as possible, but they do, of course, give him war crimes that he committed. Found that very interesting.
Well, at the end of the day, you can only make a soldier so endearing. And that was kind of why I think the G.I. Joe franchise that Stephen Sommers did later never took off.
Yeah, that's actually interesting. He did do G.I. Joe in that he does like working with soldiers and monsters. Those are his two
Yeah.
big things, which is, I guess, why they hired him for this one. So yeah, so 6.5 out of 10 is our score. John gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. I gave it a 7 out of 10. I did tell John that it was, of course, out of 10 stars, but he did decide to do 3 out of 5 instead of.
What can I say? I think in Letterboxd.
That's
I
okay.
think in Letterboxd,
See,
and that's why I'm Mr. Films.
yeah, John is Mr. Films, of course. He is one of the best Letterboxd reviewers you'll ever meet, and he does have his big YouTube review of all the Star Wars movies.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm kind of doing something different with this podcast a little bit, where I am trying to sort of do out of 10s and instead of out of 5s, because I feel like everyone does out of 5s. So to sort of
That's fair.
make myself more unique in the marketplace, I'm doing it out of 10s.
I think it has 6.75 drive cars
Okay.
out of 12 drive cars.
Okay. So 6.75.
That's another important. There are a few like classic like movie rating rubrics. There's the stars on a 5 scale. There's stars on a 10 scale, and then there's 12 cars from the film Drive, starring Ryan Gosling. The best movie, obviously.
And who wouldn't know this other than Mr. Films himself? And
That's right.
I should have introduced you as Mr. Films. I'm so sorry I forgot to do that.
I had just about forgotten, but I certainly haven't forgiven.
Yeah, Mr. Movies himself. So 6.875 based on that rating out of 10 is what we're giving it. Great,
Yeah.
John. Before we go here, John, I actually have a little game we like to play here in the 4 episodes that we've done. This is called Writer's Room. You and I are going to take a existing film and try to make it better by rewriting a part of it. Now, so have you seen the movie Flubber?
Not since I was a small boy.
Okay. Imagine it. You've seen Flubber. We're going to
Okay.
rewrite Flubber right now to bring it up to date for 2021.
Oh, well, that's easy.
Okay, go for
I
it.
can immediately picture how to do this. And,
Okay, picture idea.
I don't know. Now, I don't know how specific you want to be with part. Does that mean just like a scene, just perhaps a character dynamic, or can I do something a little bit earth-shaking?
So you can do whatever you want, where just the goal is to update Flubber for 2021.
Well, the obvious answer, of course, and we're all gonna, begin to clap and nod our heads in agreement when I say it, but obviously we changed the design of the Flubber so they all look like Muncher from the new Ghostbusters movie.
Great.
I want
That's
a bunch
really
of those
good.
little guys running around causing Robin Williams grief.
That's so good. I'm going to clap for that.
Yeah.
I am clapping and nodding my head. I mean, I don't know how to beat that. I do think that what we should probably do also is sort of update Flubber's wardrobe, because right now he's not wearing clothes for a lot of it.
Yeah, we could give Muncher Flubber maybe like a fun little bolo tie.
Yeah, I was thinking like he could wear a beanie, like maybe like a Supreme beanie.
Oh, yeah.
He could kind of be like a hype beast Flubber Muncher.
Yeah.
So he's wearing Supreme. He could wear a bolo tie too, but the bolo tie could have like an LED light that like goes on and off.
Oh, yeah. Extremely, like, kind of quirky, but kind of like, kids love seeing popular brands in bright flashing lights, so that seems like we're
Yeah.
hitting both pretty easy.
Now, I think that we also, unfortunately, R.I.P. Robin, but we do have to
for
sort of
sure.
replace him.
Yeah.
And I think that we should sort of replace him maybe with Kamala Harris's stepdaughter.
I mean, I like that, but I'm kind of wondering if we should cast Kamala Harris's stepdaughter as Muncher,
Okay.
because we know Kamala Harris's stepdaughter has that fashion taste.
Yeah, Ella M.
So
Hoff.
it is sort of like... Sorry?
Ella M. Hoff is her name, yeah.
Oh, no one would know if that's true or not. But that's good to know. If it's
Yeah.
true, maybe. I'm going to say this, and this is part of the research I did for this episode a little bit. Is I'm going to show my hand. And I'm going to say perhaps one actor that we could have replace Robbie W, R.I.P., is Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Because he's
good.
proven he can, hold his own franchise. He starred in a movie alongside a very quirky character already in Zooey Deschanel in the 500 Summer Days. But also, he's proven to be very dedicated to his craft and his character work when you read about how he played Cobra Commander in G.I. Joe, Rise of the Cobras.
Yeah. Yeah, he got really into that one. I also do like him in Don John. He plays Don John really good. He sort of does some nice accent work. So we're thinking Ella M. Hoff, Kamala Harris's stepdaughter, plays Muncher Flubber, and Joseph Gordon-Levitt plays Robin Williams' character, Dr. Flubber.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that this is starting to become maybe the fucking best movie I've ever even heard about.
This one could get a solid 11 drive cars for sure.
I think I could think it get freaking 12 drive cars. And I think maybe someone should hire you to write this thing. So if any Hollywood producers are listening, I mean, John just freaking pitched his take on the new Flubber movie. If anyone wants to maybe come get it.
I am nothing if not extremely hireable.
Mm-hmm. And they could pay you so much money for this thing.
Oh, they could pay me so little too.
Yeah,
I'm gonna keep it a buck. They could give me a buck.
They could you could do it for free.
Yeah.
Maybe you should
Listen.
write it on spec and see what happens.
Oh man, I mean, I do have the first half of it in my Jon Stewart packet, so this is good news for me, where I can just finish it up now.
Yeah, I didn't submit a Jon Stewart packet. I'm submitting to this new show. It's John Gosling's late night talk show.
Yes, I saw your tweets about this.
Yeah, it's called Hot Nights with John Gosling. So I'm kind of crossing my fingers on that one because I need to get out of this freaking studio apartment before it kills me. The walls are closing in over here on this end.
Plus, there are too many late night shows that are late night and not enough hot nights. So I think that's a good way to bill it.
Hot Nights with John Gosling. I really hope I become a writer on there. John, I want to thank you so much for coming on, talking about the Car Insurance General versus Dracula, and helping us update Flubber for 2021. If you have anything you want to plug, now's the time while I look up what I need to plug myself here.
Absolutely. You can find me at Jon Barr Tweets on Twitter and Instagram. I get up to shenanigans on those. As we talked about earlier, twitch.tv/Jon Barr. I do all kinds of things there, including shows where I try and redesign pop culture things to make them better, including redoing classic kids' cartoons as gritty, angsty 20-somethings, sort of in the style of Riverdale and the upcoming Powerpuff Girls show.
Yeah.
As well as making all of the bad Golden Globe nominees actually good.
Yeah.
So you can check out streams like that, twitch.tv/Jon Barr, and find me under the Hollywood sign. I mean, I gotta actually double check that it's still not boob.
Yeah, you check that. So if anyone wants to send in a forgotten film that they want us to review, you can email forgottenfilmspodcast@gmail.com, or you can DM me on Twitter at filmspodcast, which is a really good handle that I purchased for $650. John, thank you so much. And you know what? I'll see everyone who's listening to this next week.